KL Publications presents Amnesia, a journey to higher consciousness and spiritual enlightenment. The cold, sterile light above flickered as her eyes slowly opened. She had no idea where she was or how she had gotten there. Tubes ran from her arms to beeping machines that monitored her fragile existence. The sharp scent of antiseptic hung in the air, and though the haziness of her mind, one piercing realization struck. She didn't remember anything, not her name, her past, or why she was here. The woman lay still, scanning the unfamiliar room for clues, but nothing triggered a memory. A nurse entered the room, her face full of sympathy. But when the woman asked her name, the nurse hesitated before replying. "It's okay. You're safe now. You survived." It was then that fragments of a conversation she couldn't remember started to take shape. The doctor later explained, a suicide attempt. But why? What had driven her to such an act? There was no answer in her mind, only a deep emptiness where her memories should have been. As days passed, in the quiet solitude of the hospital, the woman struggled with the vast blankness in her mind. She felt detached from herself, a stranger inhabiting a body with no history, no connection. But perhaps this emptiness was also a gift, a clean slate, a second chance. Discharged from the hospital, she decided to embark on a quest to rediscover herself. There was no family waiting for her, no friends who had come forward, but rather than see this as despairing, she took it as a sign that this journey was hers alone, the beginning of self-discovery. The journey began with questions. What is life? Who am I? Why did I survive? She turned to books, hoping that the thoughts of others could help her answer these questions. Her hands reached for a small, worn copy of the Bhagavad Gita at a local library. It was the teaching of Krishna to the warrior Arjuna that first gave her pause. Arjuna, like her, was lost, facing an internal battle. Krishna's words were like a whisper to her soul. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your actions. The concept of detachment from outcomes stuck by her deeply. Could it be that her pain had been tied to an attachment she no longer remembered? As she explored further, reading the works of spiritual masters like the Buddha and Lao Tzu, she began to sense a pattern. Each of these teachings encouraged letting go of attachments, finding peace within, and understanding that suffering came from the mind's illusions. Her memory, or lack of it, became less of a burden and more of an invitation to live in the present, free from the ghosts of her past. Encounters with spiritual masters. Her journey led her to spiritual retreats and meditation centers. At one such retreat, she met a Buddhist monk who invited her to explore Vipassana meditation, the practice of seeing things as they really are. Sitting in the stillness, focusing on her breath, the woman felt a sense of relief that she had never known before. Each breath in was a new beginning, each breath out a release of tension. The more she practiced, the more she began to realize that her amnesia was not just about forgetting memories, but also about forgetting patterns of pain that no longer needed to control her life. Through meditation, she encountered moments of pure awareness, moments when her sense of self dissolved and she became one with everything around her. The teaching of Buddha on importance resonated deeply. She realized that life was in constant flux, and rather than fight it, she could embrace it. She traveled next to a remote village in India, where she met an Asian yogi who spoke to her of the importance of Atman, the inner self, and how it was connected to the universal spirit Brahman. You are not your mind, your body, or your memories, he told her. You are something far greater, an eternal presence that cannot be lost. These words struck something deep within her. reminding her of Krishna's teaching on the indestructible nature of the soul. Despite her amnesia, despite her fractured identity, there was a part of her that was whole, timeless, and untouched by suffering. The journey within. As her travels continued, so did her inner transformation. She learned to practice mindfulness, being fully present in each moment and embracing whatever arose without judgment. The past that had once loomed over her like a dark cloud was now distant, its influence fading with every new realization. In its place emerged a growing sense of peace and purpose. She began to see that life wasn't about what had happened before. It was about how she chose to live now. In the quiet moments of reflection, she began writing down her thoughts and realizations, distilling the teaching of the spiritual masters into lessons that spoke directly to her own experience. She wrote about how suffering could be a doorway to transformation if met with awareness. How love was not something to be sought from the outside but found within, and how higher consciousness was less a slate or a state to be achieved and more a return to one's true nature. She continued to deepen her understanding by studying the works of other spiritual figures, including Eckhart Tolle and Rumi. Tolle's teaching on the power of the present moment echoed her growing belief that life was here, now, not in the forgotten past or an uncertain future. Rumi's poetry spoke to her of love as an energy that permeated all things, connecting her to the universe in ways she could have not previously imagined. Higher consciousness and love. Gradually, her journey became less about finding answers and more about embodying them. She stopped searching for her lost identity and began living from a place of higher consciousness. She learned that life was not something to be understood intellectually, but experienced fully. Moment by moment, her experiences with the spiritual teachings of the masters had transformed her outlook. The love she once sought externally, she now found within. And in the end, she came to understand that her amnesia had been a blessing in disguise. It had freed her from the chains of a painful past and allowed her to rediscover life through a lens of spiritual awakening. Her journey of self-discovery became a journey of remembering, not the details of her old life, but the truth of who she really was, a soul on a path of evolution, love, and higher consciousness. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe.